Jeff Holler, who is, in addition to being an owner and founder of the Capital Chart Room, whose clients and some of the most respected and successful entrepreneurs in Texas, Oklahoma, and Arkansas, Jeff is an acclaimed author and an inspiring speaker. Our relationship, Jeff, goes back decades, and he's a client, as a matter of fact, of D&M Leasing. But Jeff writes a book called Bigger Than Business, and he also hosts a podcast, and he talks about real-world stories behind business owners living their purpose, and he shares 8 inspiring stories of Christian business owners living out the purpose for which God created them in their unique business settings. The Capital Chart Room's Bigger Than Business podcast impacts through interviews the interesting stories of investments of valuable insights of some of our country's most successful entrepreneurs. And if you all haven't had a chance to listen, Mike Hernandez is actually one of his early on podcasts that he conducted. Jeff holds a bachelor's degree from Florida State. We won't hold that against you, Jeff. And he's a certified financial planner. Jeff, would you please come up here and join us?
Well, Migo, congratulations. 50 years, man. That's incredible. Just incredible. It's been a great run. It's an amazing 50-year ride for you and D&M. You know, it's hard to believe that we met in 1984, 42 years ago, when I leased my first automobile from D&M. And my leasing agent was Mike Hernandez. I was one of his very first customers. And so I've had a front row seat for this incredible ride you guys have been on. And what I'd like to do today, Mike, is help the team know the backstory that got HERNCO to where it is today, and then take a peek into the future.
Sure.
All right, you ready?
Yeah.
So I'd like to start with you personally. You know, you came from very humble beginnings. You were raised in the Rio Grande Valley, in Cameron County, which is historically known and currently still the poorest county in Texas. Looking back, how did that backdrop to your upbringing drive you forward to your success?
Well, I'd say that growing up down there, there's there's an entrepreneurial spirit in the culture down there, because everybody's hustling to make money because nobody has any money. And so, you know, that was kind of ingrained. And don't misunderstand, I mean, I didn't grow up with dirt floors or anything like that. But it was a poor community that we came from, and, you know, we thought we were doing good, but then realized when we moved up here, wow, you know, there's a lot more to the world. And so, anyway, it hopefully kept me grounded, and I you know, I know what it's like not to have money. All through school and college, I didn't have any money. When I got out of school, my first job, I wasn't making any money, and so, yeah.
Yeah, so you grew up seeing people work and hustle and work hard, yeah, to earn a living and get by.
And have things and have lifestyles that, you know, I was like, I'd like to have that. And
so you graduated from Texas A&M University. I don't think that's a secret in this room. In 1983. You were what, 14 or 15 when you graduated?
15.
No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Your degree was in industrial distribution, and you thought your future was going to be in engineering, because that was the highest earning career path back at that time. Yeah. And as a matter of fact, your first job was with a fluid power distributor in Houston, Texas, in that space.
That's correct.
So how did you end up in Arlington, Texas in the automobile business?
Like you said, I took that first job. Everybody was focused at that time when I was in college on the oil and gas industry, because that was the first big, you know, boom. And, you know, petroleum engineering degrees were big, and, you know, rather than getting just a marketing degree, which was sales, I knew I wanted to get into sales and sales management. The industrial distribution added a different layer. It was more specialized because you had to take engineering classes and all that stuff. So I thought I'd be more specialized and I'd have a better opportunity to get a job. And so when I, you know, go through my interviews and everything, I got one job offer. And I was making $19,000 a year living in Houston, and in a one-bedroom apartment. So I did that for a year and said, I've got to get back to DFW and figure out a way to. And I was barely over the poverty line. And so a friend of mine's dad, Moritz, owned the Cadillac dealership, and there was a little leasing company attached to Moritz and Davis's two dealerships. It was called D&M Leasing, and it was above the service drive in the Don Davis's lot.
That's where I leased my first car.
Yeah, you came up.
So, you mentioned D&M, Don Davis and David Moritz, and they're two legends in the automobile business. How did that experience getting to work for them from right out of the chute impact your path in the auto business, and how does it still influence you today?
Yeah, I always watched. I was actually closer to Mr. Moritz and Mr. Davis, but I learned from both of their styles. Like the Jimmy Buffett song. I just watched them closely and saw the good things, which they did. The majority of the things they did, they were very successful at. And then any mistakes that were made or issues that they had with partners and things like that, I would watch and see what happened, and it obviously gave me some insight into what I was going to deal with in the future. And so that was very helpful, and they were, honest businessmen. They did things right, back in the 1970s and 80s, the car business was pretty, Wild West, and they they didn't cut corners, and so I always liked that.
And they had two different styles too, which was that had to be really helpful for you. Where
exactly.
David was more the business guy, and Don was more the true
car
man. Guy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, I learned a lot.
That tremendous experience. So, in 1990, Mike had been with D&M for 6 years at that point, and he got the responsibility to build the business from a department in one of the dealerships that he mentioned to a standalone company. And 6 years into it, David and Don invited Mike to buy into the company as a partner. Coincidentally, I started my business. I'm a business owner advising business owners in 1990. And Don Davis and David Moritz both became clients shortly thereafter. And they both encouraged me to work with Mike. And the reason they encouraged me to work with Mike is they saw a great future ahead of him. They thought he could be exceptionally successful in the business. Well, I was still leasing cars from Mike. As Mike mentioned, our friendship had grown. But working with him on the business side, it didn't take long for me to understand what Don and David saw in Mike. He was intensely focused on the business. That probably hasn't changed much. He was smart, and he was innovative. And there was no leasing company model to replicate. Mike was pretty much building everything from scratch. And he continues to be the innovator, a trendsetter, and really a primary disruptor in the automobile industry. Mike, Don and David saw it in you, but why did you want to take the risk to become an owner in the business?
That's a good question, Jeff. I figured at one point I was going to have to really take some risk, and we can go through that at the time when I took over D&M. It wasn't like this. I mean, it was.
What was it like in the early days? Sure, give us some idea.
When I first bought into D&M, I didn't have to even buy into it because it was losing $2 million a year. I mean, it was. They're like, here, turn it around, or we're going to shut it down.
They paid you to take 20%?
They didn't pay. Yeah, well, they gave me some of it, and then I had to buy the rest once it started doing good. But it was nothing. I mean, it was when I started, there were 5 salespeople. I was one of the 5 salespeople. Stacy was answering the phones and typing the lease contracts, and then we had a bookkeeper, and Jim Cox was the manager, and that was it.
Yeah, and I got the pleasure of getting to work with Stacy, and we still do to this day. So,
yeah.
Well, it's grown quite a bit from 5 salespeople and Stacy doing the paperwork.
Yeah, and then over time, when I was able to buy out Don and Dave, because they were splitting up their own thing, as you know. We're not telling financial secrets here, but they had decided to split up their holdings that they had together, and D&M was kind of the last one. that was still hanging out there. And so the answer was, Mike, why don't you just buy us out? Which I did.
So what advice might you have for newer team members regarding what it takes to be successful in this business?
Jeff.
What advice might you have for new team members at D&M for what it takes to be successful?
Well, I think we are pretty clear about what it takes to be successful to all new incoming agents. You have to have a sense of urgency. That's something that has to be, who you are. We move fast, and it's all about the ease of the deal, as you hopefully have seen all these years.
Yep.
That's our main thing. We're not pushing a particular make or model. I'm not talking about our dealerships, folks. I'm talking about the leasing company, but we don't push any particular make or model. Yes, we show the advantages of getting the ones we carry, but we truly are trying to provide a service to the customer, a car acquisition service that is hassle-free and easy to do, and can do from home, or they can come in. And so that concept has been around for 50 years. Yep. And it's what I say a lot of times is the in my opinion, the automobile industry structure, the dealership structure is a 1950s, 1960s business model that has everyone has made, including the factories, so much of an investment in there that it's too hard to change. And they try to change around the fringes, but that's the difference for D&M because we don't have those kinds of restrictions. So, and more, that's where society's going. So I see, this is, D&M Leasing is the future of the car business in some capacity. I'm not saying D&M Leasing is going to be the next, General Motors. I'm saying what we do and how we do it is the future of the car.
100%. Well, I still want to go back. I want to jump into the future in a second. So, Mike,
Sorry, I'm not good at looking backwards.
You're doing great. No, 2005, Mike becomes the 100% owner of D&M Leasing. And the first 3 years of 100% ownership, as I recall, each year was record revenue, record profit. 3 great years, popping the cork every year to celebrate. And Mike, building a business is not easy. It's not for the faint of heart. Mike had experienced a lot of adversities up to that point. But in 2008, disaster struck. And I'll never forget a call I got one day in 2008 from Mike saying he wanted to meet as soon as possible. And he wanted to review his personal financial situation because he wanted to be able to figure out what to do if the company went under. And what had happened is we had the second greatest recession in history, and every single bank that provided financing for D&M leases sent Mike a fax saying, as of today, we are out of the automobile financing business. And when I went and met with Mike, I'll never forget his comment. He said, Jeff, I'm one fax away from being out of business. He had one company left that was willing to finance autos. And fortunately, he never got that fax. That's why you're here today. But that extremely difficult time led to conversations about what else could be done to get financing other than depending on major banks. That led to an entirely new and innovative approach to financing leases. Mike, again, I want to go back. Will you describe what that time was like for you? Because that was a tough time.
Yeah, that was probably the closest. You talk to any longtime business owners. I remember having this conversation with Mr. Moritz, and he was, wore it like a badge of honor. I almost went out of business 2 times. Well, we almost did 1 time. And that's when, and it wasn't because we weren't good at our jobs and that we were necessarily doing anything wrong. We were in a position where we had 44,000 customers and no place to place them. And never in my life to that point had I ever thought that would be something that would happen. you know, that was my short-sightedness. But, you know, at that time, I had realized quick we had to come up with something different. And so in the process, thought process I was having at the time was I have to keep my agents fed. You know, I've got to, you know, there's only so many car deals we can do. So that's when we started, the government started just dropping mortgage rates and interest rates down to almost, you know, nothing. And so with all those customers, I said, well, they all have mortgages. Let's call them and refinance their mortgages until we can figure out what we're going to do. In the process of getting into that, it would allow, you know, the agents to call their customers and to drum up business and, you know, talk to them about, really, it got us talking to our customers about their overall finances and managing their payments, including their house payment and their car payment. And we could, you know, get them a lower payment on the car and then refinance the house. So we kind of got into that kind of stuff. But in the process of doing mortgages, I learned the difference between mortgage brokers and mortgage bankers. And mortgage brokers are what D&M was at that time. We were just brokering paper.
Yep.
Mortgage banker actually holds it for a while, places it, you know, bundles it, all that kind of stuff. I didn't know that from what I had done to that point. And so I learned a lot about the financing side, and I realized, well, wait a minute, there's some parallels here, and there might be some opportunities. And I realized that we don't want to be in a position where we're depending on national banks that are based in New York or, you know, in California or someplace else. It really doesn't have an interest in what we do. They're just banking us because we're big. And the question I kept asking myself is, who likes what we do? Who likes lending money on cars? And I realized it was credit unions. It's not commercial banks. And so we started talking to the credit unions, and I realized that there are some very, very large credit unions all over the state, and that they liked this business. They were just afraid of residuals. Well, setting residuals is what we do for a living, and so once I was able to calm them down on that and make sure they were comfortable with the terms of our agreement, and so once we were able to do that, it kind of started to snowball after that, and then we had something that nobody else did.
Yeah.
And so, but I mean, it was looking into the abyss for a while. It really was.
Out of adversity, good things can come under good leadership, Mike. And the fact is that you didn't sit back and say, you know, poor me. You said, what do we need to do to change this and not ever experience this again in the future?
Yeah.
And the strategy that came out of it was incredible. Another strategy that you've built into HERNCO's success is bringing in the auto dealerships. And by the way, the general manager of the Ford store, I was in the elevator with him this morning. He was promoting Fords. Yeah, you said you didn't want to promote any models. He was promoting Fords in the elevator. So yeah, he was doing his job. But so, you know, auto dealerships are capital intensive. You can lease from any dealership in the country with no capital invested. Why would you go and invest the capital in owning auto dealerships?
Well, you can't have all these customers and all this financing set up and ever be in a position where you can't get the commodity that your business is based on. And so the fact that we had to deal with an intermediary to get our inventory, that sometimes those intermediaries can be fickle, that's a tough way to run a business long term, in my opinion. On the other side, too, is that you know, banks and lenders look at independent brokers. They don't look at them favorably, and that I don't think that's necessarily fair, but that's the case. They look at a franchise auto dealer and they see how much of an investment you have to make in the real estate and the inventory and all the deal, and they look at you as legitimate. And so I remember it was much easier to get financing when I was with Moritz and Davis because of the dealership connection. Yep. And so I always knew at some point I needed to get my own dealerships. but they're kind of expensive. And so, I had to do it at the right time, in the right areas, without also, getting blocked by the TADA groups and things like that. So we had to really do some maneuvering. And there was a lot of people questioning at the time why it was necessary for us to have our own conduit directly to the manufacturers. But I think now it's obvious, especially when we went through COVID, that we just can't be in a position where others can control our destiny. Just like with the banks, same thing goes with the dealerships.
Yeah, I can assure you that a lot of Mike's time and attention and thought goes into what can we do to make sure that nothing can ever disrupt the success of our company. And a lot of that came out of 2008 because of that situation, because of that adversity. And the dealerships is another great example of that. You don't have to worry about supply because you own your supply chain, which is really great. It's another great strategy.
There was one other thing that happened back in the 90s, that we were getting so big, and Autoflex at the time was also doing a lot of advertising. They were getting big, and the TADA kind of decided, enough of these guys, we need to get rid of them. And they tried to legislate us out of business.
I remember that. Yeah.
That was also a very difficult time, and also always stuck in the back of my head that, I'm not going to be at the mercy of these people. And so, we figured it out. We had to do our own lobbying. Andy Adams was very involved in that. That was one of the few times we worked together back in those days. And, we got it worked out, but that was a very touch and go period as well. And that also showed that the dealership connection is invaluable.
Yep.
It makes you a little more, or makes our company a little more untouchable when it comes to that political BS.
There have been a lot of innovations over the years, the easy lease, the technology, and again, everything's focused on protecting the viability, the sustainability of D&M and HERNCO, and ensuring that you guys have a great place to work and a great future. What's your vision for the future of the company?
We keep doing what we're doing. I think we provide a good service, a valuable service that people want. And if they didn't, then I don't think we'd have the type of repeat or type of retention business that we have and repeat. I still don't think that we have really scratched the surface very deep in Houston and Austin yet. We're real excited about that. I think the Dallas and Fort Worth offices are really strong and a mature business at this point. And so, I see plenty of growth in the future, plenty of opportunities, maybe possibly out of state. But yeah, I think there's going to be plenty of opportunities for people that either want to keep doing what they're doing or they want to do something more.
And I can assure everybody Mike is just as intense about growing the business today as he was the first day I met him. Two final questions. I see our clock's at 0. As HERNCO celebrates 50 years, what are you most proud of regarding what the company's become, and what are you most excited about for the next 50 years?
We've received a lot of awards that I'm extremely proud of, especially the dealerships. To get all of the awards from all of these different places all in 1 year is incredible. But the award I like the most is the one that, like the 100 top places to work. Yeah. It comes from the feedback from the employees, and that they like the direction of the company. They don't always love management, but they understand what we're doing, and they trust us, the direction that we're taking the company. And, all that is something I'm extremely proud of, because when you get the size that we are, when we were 10 people, 7 people in an office, it's easy. But to be able to keep that kind of camaraderie and teamwork, because all of these people work together, even though they're all independent independent agents who are building their own businesses, they all work together. And to have that I'm very, very proud of that teamwork.
Yeah, culture is everything, and the video that ran before we came up on stage really reflected that culture well, just from the words of your team. Incredible. What are you most excited about for the next 50 years?
I think we're the future of the car business. Like I said, I don't want to sound arrogant or anything, but I think the way we do business and our philosophy and our focus on not on the commodity itself, but the process and making it in the service for the customer, I think I think we're always in good shape.
I think you guys will continue to be the disruptor and the leader in the industry. And Mike, congratulations again on 50 years, my friend. It's I'll end where I started. It's been one heck of a ride.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
Buddy.
So we wanted to do a little pomp and circumstance in honor of our 50th year in business. And so, Mike, you want to maybe talk a little bit about what we put at everybody's table?
You guys see this coin? How many military people do we have retired? A few. Floyd, you know what the challenge coin is? There's different histories that you can check on this thing, but I think the one where this really started was, coins were always used going back in the 1700s for identification. If you went somewhere, that was your identification, and it would have your own insignia on there. And then when the military started using it during World War II, the story I heard was that one of the outfits that had been in combat, they had their coins in their pocket, and they were having a party. And some other people tried to get into the party that weren't in combat and weren't in their outfit. And so they had to present their coin, and if they presented their coin, then they could get in. And so it became a big thing where, hey, you've got to earn this thing, and it's kind of who you are and what you've done. It went from military into the corporate world as well, law enforcement. Oftentimes each unit will have their own, and so it's a sign of having gone through. Obviously, we didn't go through combat, but the type of business combat that we go through every day, and we feel like everybody's earned one and should have one proudly. So I'd like to present it to you, and I'd like to give Jeff one, actually, and that's what you do.
Thank you.
Your exchange.
Thank you.